Welcome to the House of Rugby, brought to you by Joe. We're joined by the Tullow Tank, Sean O'Brien, and also a 2016 Men's Health Man of the Year and the Wallaby, Nick Phipps. Phippsy, how are you, mate?
Good, mate. Thanks for having me. Reigning champ, by the way.
What did you have to do to get
No, it was the ultimate
award?
stitch-up ever, actually, because the media lady at our club at the Waratahs was like, we need to get the club out there. We need to try and get some publicity going. Can you just do this little half-page spread? It'll be in the back of Men's Health. It's just like a Q&A about your diet and how you train, blah,
Topless?
blah. No, wait. So I'm like, yeah, that's sweet. That's easy. It was in our off-season. So, I rocked up to this place, turned up, and I was like, you know why Game of Thrones was so late to production? They were there. There was 100 people. There was tyres to flip, smoke machines. There was all kinds of things, ropes to play with. There was different outfits. Half of it was topless. And I was like, what is going on here? This is the worst thing I've ever done.
I just refused to do that.
So it was like a 5-hour stint, and then finished up, and I was like, oh, well, half-page spread at the back of the Men's Health. No, the boys won't see it, but more importantly, walked in the next day and she's like, oh, how was it? And I was like, yeah, it's all right. It was pretty full on. She goes, yeah, well, the competition starts next week. So it's a 2-month comp. It's like a celebrity comp. Everyone votes. They're always texting in. Don't worry. We'll make sure that we're getting it out there amongst the fans and blah, blah. And I'm like, this is the worst thing ever. So it was just relentless for 2 months. I don't think the Waratahs sold a ticket those 2 months either, because every time I walked up into the staff area, all of them there were just like, refresh vote, refresh vote, refresh vote. And ended up taking it out, which... I've never really lived down, to be honest.
Well, it's a good accolade.
Yeah.
Me and Seanie haven't got that. Have you got Tullow Man of the Year or
Mr. Tullow?
Mr. Tullow? Tullow Tank, Big Goose?
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But I mean, if it was publicity involved, you'd definitely take your top off for it. I mean,
I don't have to have publicity involved, I'm afraid. That's the problem sometimes.
yeah. That is the issue with you. It's keeping your clothes on. But Seanie, how are you? Nearly back, fit?
Yeah, good, yeah. I'm back training now this week.
He's got a spring in his step.
He has?
Yeah, when he's back training, he's got a spring in his step.
What's he like at training? Because he tells me stories of getting in scraps, like when he was in Ireland and all that. And I can imagine, when you have that Tuesday afternoon session where the team's been announced and Seanie's not in it or something.
Yeah.
He'll be a nightmare.
Again.
He'll be the one just stealing all the ball, full contact while everyone's just trying to get through the session, scrapping away.
If I
Is that
wasn't selected, I usually go for a few chip and chases. That's my go-to.
Yeah, he loosens up a bit.
To be honest, I thought when you weren't selected, you just walked in and just didn't train. It's not for me. Hamstring's tight again.
You won't let me do that, unfortunately.
But yeah, you guys on a roll. Great win again at the weekend.
Yeah, it's good. Just consistency. We've always struggled a little bit as a team with that consistency. We had a great win against Harlequins the week before, and probably our Achilles heel would just be soak up the moment a bit too much through the week. So it was good to get that consistency and stay focused, which is something that we haven't been great at. So now we can sort of hopefully keep that consistency going a little bit and trying to get better every week and keep the club rolling on.
You boys joined at the same time at Irish, did you?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did.
What was your first impression of Nick, Seanie? Be careful, because I'll ask him next.
I thought he was super professional. It was actually a funny story. One day in the change room, do you remember this? Where we were talking about some other fella, and I was saying he's not at the race at all or something small like that. But all Bigsy heard was he's not at the races, and me and him sit beside each other. So he turned to me a few minutes later and he said, "Mate, have you got a problem with me?" And I said, "What?" He's like, "I just overheard you talking, and was it about me?" And I went, "No, genuinely it was."
Good sound after that.
Yeah, it was easy.
Yeah.
I like that. Just straight to it.
Yeah.
Seanie,
It's
what's your problem?
Yeah, no,
in prison,
exactly,
mate.
yeah.
You take on the biggest dog in the yard. First day in.
No, Phippsy's been great in the environment. He's one of our drivers. We buddy up and have a bit of a laugh every now and again. So it's good to have lads like him in the change room and cry. As well, yeah. We have a right bitch in the morning. Sometimes, to be honest.
Bit of a sap in the morning. Yeah, everyone's got those guys.
I haven't had a coffee yet.
Yeah, it keeps you going.
But no, it's been brilliant around the place.
So when you first got to the club, did you have any initiations or anything interesting?
We did until our first social, I remember.
Yeah, which is probably a year after. Actually.
Yeah, because we sort of got here a couple of months before COVID hit. So first social was pint of Guinness with a shot of whiskey in it, and then you had to eat a whole raw potato.
Whiskey and Baileys, actually.
Yeah, and then a pint of Guinness after that with a shot of Baileys in it. So that sunk a few blokes.
Cracking fun.
Have you ever tried to eat a raw potato?
Yeah. Mate,
No, I wouldn't want to.
Honestly, it is.
It's tough
atrocious,
work. Tough work.
Some people have to do
But you just kept going. You just got to fight your way through.
You got to get
grind
your way
out.
through it, yeah. And it takes about 10 minutes to do it. So everyone's just sitting there just hurry up.
Yeah, I'm trying my best.
Yeah, exactly.
And Seanie was Was he there? Did he do it?
I
or
was
did he,
leading
Yeah,
the
he's
charge,
there.
yeah.
Life of the party.
Yeah.
why are you winking at me?
Disappeared after. Got out there. Got out Dodge.
Yeah.
Quickly.
Too professional. Back home for scrambled eggs and salmon, was it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The other thing Shawnee goes on about here is his boxing. Like, loves boxing, really rates himself. Right? You said, you were
I don't
talking
at all. I
like,
said I enjoyed the training.
you wanted to fight Paul Gallen. Well, I've got a different challenge for you.
Big gal.
We messaged Wendell Saylor,
Yeah.
who Big Del,
Big deal.
and he had a message back about fighting you. He said pretty much the crux of it was, I'm going to kill him, and then he said, if you wake the beast, you better be ready to rumble. Now, I have never met Big Del, but I've seen
That
his
is
social
something
media.
that would directly come out of Dell's mouth. The big fella.
I mean, he's a lunatic from all accounts. Like, you wouldn't want to fight him, would you?
No, I don't think you should either.
I mean,
He's a big
I think
boy.
he's like 45 years old, but he looks
Oh.
in great nick.
Still quick too. Jeez.
I think he
Still
wants
got
it,
it.
mate. He's angry. Like,
Let him be angry. Let
I
him
mean,
be angry.
I mean, okay. Let's put it this way: would you fancy fighting him?
I don't want to fight anyone really. I'm not a fighter. I'm a
You're a
lover.
lover.
I'm a lover,
Yeah,
not a
you're a lover.
fighter.
Why is it off screen? You're telling us that you
Oh.
want to fight someone.
I said that Gallen would be one down the line if I actually done a bit of boxing after playing rugby.
I'm not saying you do it right now, but
Oh
you
yeah,
know.
well if I was actually training like those boys have been training for years.
So you're saying you warm up with Gal and then you'll fight Del.
Oh,
as-
but
as-
you
as
if
the
you keep
big
doing
boss.
what you're doing.
So in a fight you would back Wendell over.
I think
Shawnee.
Wendell's got the experience too.
yeah.
You've never been in a fight.
No, exactly. Not with gloves on anyway.
After a few
Minus
few-
ball cues.
in Tullow, is it every Friday night, isn't it?
Tolo's very quiet.
Is it?
Yeah, there's no problems in Tolo, to be fair.
Well, anyways, on to some rugby news. Dubai Sevens has just gone, and South Africa beat Australia 10-7 in the final. Obviously disappointing for Australia, but you played Sevens. You played the Commonwealth in 2010, was it?
Yeah,
And then a few tournaments.
Yeah.
You play in Dubai. I mean, how great is it playing Dubai at the Sevens there?
It's unreal. It's like every expat in the Middle East just comes together for a week of looseness. And they have the tens as well during the week, so you get a lot of people rolling in from all around the world. It's good fun. You often feel like when you're playing that they're just inconvenienced by the game being in the middle of everything. It's funny, mate. Sevens is such a crazy game now.
Yeah, it's just going into it. Is it? I mean, it looks to me as if it's like a completely different sport now. in
It
the
is,
sense of,
it
like,
is.
The athletes you have to be for that
Yeah.
and everything. When you did it, did it feel like that, or was the
When I
training so
started, it was a lot about, cut your teeth in this sort of professional environment, like in the big stage, playing in front of huge crowds, get your chance there. And then the idea is that you get picked up by a super rugby team. So like it was pretty much a feeder club, to be honest, for pretty much back rowers and backs. And I loved it. I loved the opportunity to get to train and play and travel and like get a chance on the big stage. Now it is just literally everything is they've got their own professional programs. They're so quick. They're so big. Like it's a different ball game. You can't. Every time the Olympics rolls around as well, they're like, oh, let's pick a couple of Wallabies to go on the sevens team. You can't do it anymore unless you've spent a good 6 months into it. It's just an unbelievable game that is so quick and fast now. It's its own beast, and that's why you don't really see that many sevens players cross over into the 15s because it's just such a different game.
In other news, there's been a lot of talk about South Africa perhaps joining the Six Nations. Ian McGeechan wrote a big article. So many of the players now are over here in Europe, obviously in the URC as well. What are your thoughts on that? It's obviously financially would be massive for the Six Nations, such a big market, South Africa. What are your thoughts on that, Shawnee?
Well, it's not going to be the Six Nations then, is it?
Well,
you know what I mean.
Well, you could have promotion relegation.
But like,
one
if you
team out.
bring South Africa into it, like, where does it stop then? Like, do you just create a whole new tournament with New Zealand, Australia as well in it? You know what I mean?
Well, let's start with just hypothetically, South Africa with all their players.
Yeah,
over here.
it'd be good it'd be good money wise, probably business wise. It's probably a very good idea for the Six Nations. But yeah, there's a lot of South Africans playing over here, but there's a lot of Kiwis, there's a lot of Aussies here at the minute, as well. So I don't know, is it a kind of one size fits all if they do end up joining it? But I still think it takes away then from the history of the Six Nations a little bit.
Would you have a relegation from the Six Nations in terms of if the team at the bottom whoever it is, they come last, they're out, and you bring a Georgia in or whoever's competing to get in.
Well, yeah, that could be the solution to it. But like, you look at Italy, 9 times out of 10 are going to finish bottom. With the resources they have and the players they have. So, like, is it how do they get back into the competition? That's my point. When they get out of it,
well, they compete against other teams. So Germany, Portugal, Spain, Georgia, in the other teams, Russia, wherever, and then the winner of that, goes up the next year.
I'd rather see one of those countries get in rather than South Africa. I think leave the Southern Hemisphere teams battle it out over there. They have their competitions.
And for you, obviously, Rugby Championship, not having South Africa would be a huge loss. And would be the same, I assume.
No, it wouldn't. And they're funny. They're so stubborn, the South Africans, about wanting to come over into this Northern Hemisphere side of the game. You can understand for them it's better financially, I guess. But, God, I'd hate to see the Six Nations change too much. I like as someone who's never been a part of it, see the romanticism of it, like the tradition, the history. I love that, but also I love the tradition and the history of the Tri-Nations and bringing Argentina in now. I love that. I think you want to be playing in those competitions, and then it makes those European spring tours even more special because you don't get to play those teams all the time.
And lastly, in rugby news, it came out this week that Roy Keane had spoken to the Irish team ahead of the England game last year. Johnny Sexton said it was quite inspirational, I guess. Anything from the boys? Did you hear anything about this?
I didn't hear anything about it, but he's quite an interesting and influential character, obviously, within the Irish community as such. So I can imagine it was quite entertaining to be there, and I can imagine Sexton was probably licking his arse for the majority of it. When Irish people in general react well to stuff like that, especially iconic people from Irish sport, and Roy Keane is like an absolute legend back home. Everyone loves him. I know he's a controversial character at sometimes, but I think he speaks the truth. He speaks from his heart. He talks a lot of sense as well. So you can't really disagree with him too often, or if you do, he'd batter you.
Or just mug you off, but still. But talking about characters coming to change rooms and inspirational speeches and stuff, you had Michael Checker, the Wallabies and the Waratahs and stuff. He's well known for being quite outspoken and smashing mirrors, golf clubs, etc. Just enlighten us a bit of what it was like. Some of the stories with him or his motivational ways.
He was good. I obviously had a lot of time for Czech. I loved him as a coach. A great guy who was able to bring people together for one common goal and in a way I haven't seen before, I guess. I was there for a lot of those. He's a storyteller, mate, and he gets people to invest in the story, which is fantastic. Like that golf club one, that was our final, and he brought in 23 drivers, and each one had this old lady's name on it. I think mine was named Mabel, and he's just handing them out because he just wants us to let the club go and not really care how hard you hit it or how hard you go and stuff like that. Like mirrors, he used to have a mirror in our hallway, and every morning you'd come in and you'd look in the mirror and you'd ask yourself, have you done enough for the day and stuff like that. And he's just a storyteller. He had this big sledgehammer in defence that he used to give out every week. He's a great man. It just used to get so many people involved and infatuated with completing this story, and got so many people on board. Loved it.
He done the same in Leinster. That's how Leinster went after him, really, to change the culture, because he's hard nosed, Czech is, but at least he tells you exactly how it is. And while as rugby's gone on through the years, it mightn't always work the way his approach, but at least he would get the best out of people. And I thought he was very good for younger guys, especially starting out, because he toughened you up a little bit and made you a bit hard skinned, and nothing really phased you then when you came under pressure. But he always had that, same as what Phipps is saying, that story that he wanted to tell, and you write your own story, you write your chapters within that through the years. And he revolutionised Leinster at the time, when they were in a really bad place in terms of mindset, and they were very soft, and they played brilliant rugby one week and terrible in Nick. So he's a big character, and he's someone who's like who I look up to too a little bit. He was brilliant for me, even though he sprayed me every single day. Every day he'd spray
To
me.
be honest, we know why you love him because
Why?
we got told by your mate who used to play with scrum-half, Paul, who, Seanie would go in and just start clubbing people, like start having a fight with this scrum-half. He whacked Paul, he whacked him, and then whacked him.
Checker love,
And
yeah.
Checker didn't go, what the hell are you doing?
No,
Seanie?
no.
Like picking on a 9. He went, bloody love it, mate. Keep going on that.
No.
So Seanie used to just scrap anyone, and
That
he loved
never
it.
happened.
Well, that's what he says, man. But anyways, back to Australia. 72 caps you got. Wonderful career. What was the sort of highlight for you?
But highlight would definitely be the 15 World Cup. Not even really because of how well we went, but more so the journey that we're on again with Czech, the story.
It seemed like, looking from the outside of that, and I was in the World Cup, not a successful one for England, but it seemed like you had a really good vibe, energy. Like everyone was like pulling together. The old guys coming in, young talent. Everyone was working together, and just found a way of playing that just suited you.
And we had a terrible rugby championship as well before that. Like everyone was sort of riding sulphur in the pool of death. It was like so big. Even probably most people in Australia just didn't think we were going to do anything. And every week we just sort of kept getting better and sort of building up into the way we were playing. And the camps we had before that were genuine hell. So that obviously brings people together. And it was funny actually that England game. I don't know if you've heard this, but that was like a year planning. So for a year before that, we were never allowed to go to the short side, ever, no matter who we were playing. New Zealand, South Africa. We played the USA in a warm-up game, and there was like an open blind side with about 20 metres, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, if I go there, Czech's going to break my legs. So everything we played was the same way.
Just take a second. I'll play open. Slow the ball up a bit. Yeah.
So everything we played, same way. And the idea was that because we were targeting that England game so much, if they saw that, then they'd fold hard. They'd go harder, overfold. And those 2 tries we scored, the one where Bernard came back with Kirtley on the short side, and then the one where Ashley Cooper scored in the corner, that was like, those 2 tries were just so special because of how long we'd been sort of planning that. And
Finally, it goes to the short side.
Yeah. So, the idea that back home everything was like pubs were opening up at ridiculous hours. They changed the laws where pub could open up so people could see the games, and the groundswell back home was unbelievable. That was probably the most special time of my rugby career, that sort of 3-month block.
That's pretty special, to be fair. And the Wallabies at the moment, obviously, it was a lot of confidence coming over in the sense of great rugby championship.
Yeah.
Dave Rennie did a great job. And then obviously to get three defeats would be disappointing. Did you speak to many of the guys? So
Yeah, caught up with a fair few of them actually. Every single Wallaby bloke I talked to, they love the culture. They love what Rennie's doing. Like there's blokes that couldn't speak higher of Dave Rennie in there at the moment, and about what he's building and the culture that they're sort of really driving. And you could see the results in that rugby championship directly come off the back of the championship the year before when they really struggled. Well, not struggle, but there's lots of draws, inconsistency, and stuff like that. I think they just genuinely came over, haven't been over in the Northern Hemisphere for a couple of years. That Scotland game, they just didn't play Northern Hemisphere footy. They didn't understand that what you got to be able to do and the consistency. And if you give away a penalty, they're going to kick it to the corner and maul you over, stuff like that. But they did build. England was a tough game for them, but Wales, you saw that they stepped up again. Which Wales are a very good team, always at home. Like they're always consistently good.
I think in both the England game and the Wales game, particularly, the fight in the team was evident.
Yeah.
Like against England, they were on the back foot, but they kept scrapping.
Yeah, the way they held on in that first 60 minutes was unbelievable.
Because England looked
can't coach
dominant,
that,
really.
can you? No, yeah.
But yet the scoreline was so close. It was runaway try at the end, and the same against Wales. Down to 14 men earlier, and they were just scrapping and fighting, and that would be a great thing for Dave Rennie.
It's tough to see the 0-3, but you sort of, it's probably the best thing for not best thing.
But they'll take a lot.
When they come over here, no one in Australia is really watching. So they get an opportunity to play footy without that fear, or do different things that they would normally not do in Suncorp or back in Sydney. So they get an opportunity to play a different style of footy. So those players would have learned a hell of a lot over those 3 weeks, and also coming over for the World Cup in France. It's similar footy. Like the grounds are a bit slower, a bit sloggier. They've got to get used to not being able to play that exciting footy all the time. They've got to be able to learn how to play that pressure-based footy over here, which you guys do so well.
I think when they come to the next World Cup, I think they're going to be in a really good place. Phibbsy, what does the future hold for you going forward in terms of rugby, off the field? I know you have actually a bit of an interest in horses and dogs, I heard. Tell us a little bit about that as well.
Not anymore. Not once the Minister for Finance came and bore my wife. No, I'm enjoying myself over here. Like, I'm having a good time at Irish. It's been such a good breath of fresh air. Sort of Australia's got its battles back home. There's so many good people fighting the good fight, but it's been refreshing to come over here. Hopefully play as long as I can till my knees fall apart, but still got the fight, still enjoy it, still competitive, and that's half the battle, isn't it?
Yeah.
Getting up every day.
What about the Wallabies? Any interest if called upon?
Yeah, I'd love to still mix it with the best, and I still think I definitely am at that standard. But there's a lot of players out there that'd love to be doing it too. So I remember you saying it one of the first days we got into the club, like being ready. I'm always going to train and play and try and be at that level, so that if I did luckily get the call up, I'd be ready. But if worse comes to worse and I don't, then I'm playing at that standard for my club, which I love doing. So, it's a good place to be in, good place to be operating about.
Hopefully Irish keep you for another few years. So
yeah, we'll have a work. You're in charge there, aren't you? Can't you?
Well, now
I'll pull a few strings for you.
Once
Don't
you're
worry.
off the wage bill, there'll be loads for everyone else, clearly, so that'll be quite nice. Anyways, it's a great time for fans' questions that have been sent in for yourself. Luke_MCC
good man,
asked, who is the best player you've played with?
Israel Folau was an absolute game changer. His ability to just do whatever he wanted on the field was unbelievable. He was someone that you could just get behind in every facet of the game. The other bloke would be Michael Hooper. I have never seen anyone work harder or do what he can for the team to do well, which is so unfortunate because he would do whatever he could for the team to go well, and he puts his body on the line every single bloody day he's out there, and he's a leader that you can get behind all the time, and I'm so happy to see him do so well this year. Like, I remember at the beginning of the year, some hack journos were saying how he's got to hand over the captaincy and step aside, and he's passed it. He's never not been one of the best players on the field in every game he's played. So
yeah, his consistency.
Fantastic to see him do so well this year and get the deserved nomination for Player of the Year as well.
Question 2 from Tougher0019. What is the difference between playing halfback in Northern Hemisphere versus the Southern Hemisphere?
Oh, well, it's funny. In Southern Hemisphere, probably to our detriment as well. We're run first, run second, run third, and then accidentally kick the ball if we want to exit, which is a great place to play in, and it's a good – you love it. But I think, coming on the international stage, it's often sometimes been our definite Achilles heel. Coming over here, I knew there was going to be a lot more kicking, but I definitely didn't realise how much I'd love being involved in learning how to move teams around and how important a good kicking game is. And it took me a long time to adjust, to be honest. I'd never been a big kicker, never been a great kicker. And coming here, I've kicked my right groin off the amount of work I've done on it. It's been a lot of fun, sort of learning how and watching players like Ben Youngs and those sort of guys who just do it so bloody well. He just picked Australia apart in that World Cup, those finals there, and I've loved it. I've enjoyed learning that kicking game. It's funny you get people in Australia like, oh, boo, another box kick or another kick, and it's like, mate, get invested and see how good a part of the game is where you're just trying to exploit those sort of situations. So, yeah, it's good. It's a good place to be. Northern Hemisphere, it's a different style, but it's also, if you know a lot about the game, it's a purer, funner style. It's great.
It's time now for Beat the Bomb. What's your rugby knowledge like? Is it bad?
Not as good as it should be. Yeah.
Wait, there's no pressure.
I ran him so close the first time on this, by the way. I nearly won. One
Well,
question.
we're going to put your knowledge to the test. Bomb's up first. Let's see how he got on, how many got right. What is Scotland's highest ever finish at Rugby World Cup?
4th,
Correct. What is Australian rugby player Nick Cummings' nickname?
the Honey Badger.
Correct. What is the furthest stage Ireland have reached at the Rugby World Cup?
Quarterfinals.
Correct. Who played every minute of England's 2003 World Cup campaign?
Ooh. Let's go. It's not Woody Wilkerson. Will Greenwood.
It was Lawrence Dallaglio.
Oh.
Since 2007, which two nations compete for the Garibaldi Trophy?
Italy and France.
Correct. Which nations compete in the Rugby Championship?
New Zealand, South Africa, Australia, and Argentina.
Correct. Which two sides compete for the Bledisloe Cup?
Australia, New Zealand.
Is that a high chair?
He is a big man.
What was that, Nick? What were you saying there? If you put him in a child's chair, oh, you know, it's he hasn't got his singlet on like normal, but he does look big in that chair. To be fair to him, Bomb got 6 correct.
Cool.
You back yourself to get 7 to win?
Yeah, I am now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ready
Well,
to
let's go for it then. I'll get the questions up here.
If you give me some of those questions, yeah.
We've got
Very
we get
best.
the timer ready. Here we go. Who is the Wallabies' highest ever point scorer?
Stephen Larkham.
No, Michael Armour.
Yeah.
Which two nations co-hosted the first Rugby World Cup?
Oh, no idea. England.
Australia, New Zealand.
Yeah.
Who was the first All Black to reach 100 caps for their country?
Mialamu? No.
Rich McCaw.
Oh.
Who kicked a last-minute penalty for Wales in their 29-28 defeat of Australia in this year's Autumn Nations Series?
Oh, no idea.
Reece Priestley.
I was there.
Who was the England head coach before Eddie Jones?
It wasn't Townsend, was it?
No. Stuart Lancaster.
I told you.
Who is the most capped Australian player of all time?
Gregan.
Yes.
Yes.
Who has presented the Webb Ellis Cup to South Africa in 1995 when they won as the host nation?
That was Nelson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nelson Mandela. Name one of the 2 Australian players who scored a try in the 1999 Rugby World Cup final.
Mackenzie? Phil Mackenzie?
No, that's time. Anyway, sorry.
That's right.
Ben Tune and Owen Finnegan.
Okay. So was I close?
You got 2. You got
Yeah.
2 correct.
I had
So it's
less amount of
unfortunate,
time,
but
yeah.
you know, Bomb.
Some of his questions
amazing.
were ridiculous.
Easy, weren't
Who
they?
plays in the Bledisloe?
I know. Ridiculous.
Two was scandalous. Two was scandalous.
All you need to know is that the show wouldn't work if Bomb loses.
Yeah,
So
okay,
we have
cool.
to keep him going,
Cool.
basically. Otherwise, it's disaster. Anyways, it's now time for this week's Good Week, Bad Week. This week's Good Week goes to Naya Tapper, the USA 7-star. She makes an unbelievable covering tackle, chases back, doesn't give up against Ireland. But take a look and see what you think. You see the Ireland player flies off and she just doesn't give up. Worst nightmare in sevens, I imagine, being chased for a try. But
That's
what a tackle.
pretty sure that won Sports Centre's top 10 as
Did
well.
it?
Yeah.
It's good to know we're trending well there.
Mhm.
Did she score it though?
No, she didn't score.
Really?
No, it was held up, which is basically like a turnover these days.
Amy Murphy-Crowe is really good as well, by the way.
Good knowledge.
Mm.
And who gets this week's bad week?
This week's bad week goes to none other than the infamous Razzie Erasmus for his, I don't know what you call it. I think he might be losing the head from being banned. He's having a right chat with his English bulldog.
Lot of behaviour.
Yeah, saying that. I just have a look at the clip. I think not being involved with coaching is affecting his.
On gardening leave.
Yeah, he's going to be crazy, but yeah, I think that's this week's bad week. The poor dog has to spend a couple of months with him now.
I mean, I thought some of the videos you had with your dogs were quite weird, but that's taken to another level.
That's strange. No, to be fair.
Do you ever take dogs into training? Ever?
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. Sometimes he's sitting in a team meeting. He's out walking it on the field. Shouldn't he be in here?
Sorry, Declan's got to look after the dogs, eh? That's the most important thing here.
I've already
Don't worry about line-out calls
Tuesday,
this week.
we're in a meeting and he's like out the field. No wonder we couldn't learn any of them.
I was wondering, could you actually see me when you were there? I wasn't involved.
Yeah.
I'm not involved.
Oh, classic. She just don't talk to meetings, eh?
I walked by the meeting room and I was like, I think the blinds are down anyway, so I'll only see the dogs and then my feet. But I actually did think about that afterwards.
That was great, actually.
Yeah.
Fair play. And this week's sin bin goes to who, Shawnee?
This week's sin bin goes to none other than Edwill van der Merwe for a slight hair pull here. You can actually see the piece of hair coming out.
It's a good yank, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good yank.
Well, that's all we've got time for. Nick, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for joining us and for giving us an insight into Shawnee. Shawnee, always good to see you. Find us on Joe YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts from. This has been House of Rugby, brought to you by Joe.